In today's video, I'll be showing you who I believe is the best duelist from each faction. Let's get to it. Today I'll be going over each faction, best duelist, and the reasons why. I'll also be showing you guys the stats of each hero's damage, stamina, and speed of their attack. I will not be going over any character's feats, because this will be a video only talking about who is the best at 1v1s, not 4v4s. Let's start off strong with the Knights faction. So we have 9 heroes in the Knights faction. I'll be honest, there was a lot of good duelists in this faction, so it wasn't super easy to decide. But after playing a lot, doing some research, and listening to the community, I came up with one conclusion. It's Warden. I know, you're thinking, Crimson, but he's a basic character. He's so standard, he's the first, ever won, blah blah blah. Well, I'm going to show you some stats right here of his damage, stamina, and speed of his attacks that might help you rethink that. But I know he's not as complex as other heroes, but with his health, damage, stamina, and adaptability, you just can't beat that. He's just a good overall character to use. No matter what character you go against, Warden just has what you need to take care of the job. You're never going to be at a disadvantage because he always has something to counter it, whereas other heroes in the Knights faction just can't go against it. I mean, you have Warmonger, and she's great at 4v4s, but duels, not so much. You have Peacekeeper, and she's great in duels, but she can't do anything in 4v4s. A lot of these characters just seem better for 4v4s, whereas Warden seems to have been made for 1v1s. I think he's just good in any game mode personally, but he's definitely top tier in duels. The Warden's second heavy finisher is unblockable, which also allows you to mix up and cancel your attacks all the time. You can also use that with his shoulder bash as a great mix-up to constantly make them guessing. And when you get a light parry, you have a guaranteed 27 damage from above, which, just to put it in perspective, that's as much damage as Shigoki can do from a regular top heavy. Which is why I have to put Warden as number 1 duelist for the Knights faction. Now let's get to the Vikings. Alright, I'll be honest, this was not easy. I had a few very good options to pick from. The top 4 I would say would have to be Valkyrie, Raider, Berserker, and Highlander. But since this is a video about who is the number 1 best duelist in each faction, I'll have to go with Highlander. Again, I'll be showing you guys some of his stats right here. I mean, where do I begin? His damage is unbelievable. Basically, all his heavies do 30 damage each, and that's including when he's in his offensive stance. When Highlander is in his offensive stance, he has his kicks that if he hits you with, it's a guaranteed unblockable heavy. Or he can do his caber toss, and if he lands that on you, another guaranteed heavy. As you can see, he's extremely good for dealing out damage. Also, when he's in his offensive stance, he has 500 millisecond light attacks that are almost unreadable. Yeah, I would say if you can master Highlander and get very good in his offensive stance, he can be a menace out in duels and even in Dominion, but for this video, we're just talking about duels, which is why I have to put him as the number 1 duelist for the Vikings faction. Now let's get to the Samurai. I'll be honest, again, this was not that easy to choose from. There was multiple good heroes from this faction, so it took me a while to figure this out. I would say these are the better heroes for duels. Kensei, Orochi, Shigoki, and Shinobi. And after looking at everything over and seeing a lot from the community, I finally found who is the best. I definitely would have to say Shinobi. Here are some of his stats. So why Shinobi? It's mostly because of his speed and mix-ups. I mean, almost all of his attacks are 500 to 600 milliseconds, which is crazy even for assassins. He's got his flip kick, spectral kick, zone attack, dodge attacks, which are all around 400 to 600 milliseconds, and again, extremely fast. I would have put Orochi or Shigoki as the best duelist if it wasn't for Shinobi, but if you can master Shinobi and use his dodges to your advantage, he can be so strong in duels. If you play counter defensive, and if you're really patient with Shinobi, you can basically counter every attack your opponent throws at you, which is why I have to put him at the number 1 duelist for the Samurai. Now let's get to the Wu Lin faction. I'll be honest, all these heroes are very good in the Wulin faction when it comes to duels. You've got Tiandi, Nusha, Zanhu, JJ, and Shalin. But none of them compete when it comes to Tiandi. Now let's talk about Tiandi and why he is so good in duels. First, he's a vanguard, so he's already going to be pretty adaptable with almost anyone he goes against. His health, stamina, and damage will all be strong no matter who you put him against. His dodge attacks and his delayed dodges are super strong, and that helps him with having crazy mix-ups. His palm strike is also very effective, especially if you go against a defensive opponent. And that palm strike hits at 433 milliseconds, which again is very fast. His zone attack is 500 milliseconds and it does 15 damage, which is a great opener. Tiandi's kick is extremely powerful while using his kit, which he can also feint. It's also a great mix-up whether you kick them and then hit them, or cancel the kick then guard break them, which if you do, you can get a guaranteed heavy. Overall, Tiandi is a very strong character, but if you can master his mix-ups, he's definitely one of the best duelists in the game, which is why I have to put him as one of the best duelists in the Wulin faction. Alright, finally, now we're at the Outlanders. There were some good choices, but this faction only has 4 heroes right now, so not a lot to choose from. Again, this one's pretty obvious. I would have to go with Aphira. And don't get me wrong, that's not to say the other Outlanders are bad, but when it comes to who's the best duelist, it would have to be Aphira. First, her mix-ups. Her mix-ups are incredible. Her dodges, insane. Her cancels, unpredictable. It's just so difficult to go against her on 1v1s. It's obviously going to be Aphira. When you throw your second heavy attack from above, you can hit your opponent with an undodgeable attack. She's extremely good at keeping lots of pressure on your opponent. She has attacks to the wall, she has attacks that are unblockable, she can throw a bash after each attack, but I would say her most useful skill is that she is some of the greatest mix-ups ever, and she can cancel so much whether it's bashes, dodges. She's just extremely strong with her mix-ups, which is why I have to put her as the best duelist for the Outlanders faction. And with that it concludes who I believe is the best duelist from each faction. But remember guys, this is just my opinion. Everything I have to say here is what I believe. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say and who you guys think is the best duelist from each faction. So comment, like, and subscribe for more.